In today's Dharma talk, I want to talk to you about two subjects. Firstly, mindfulness of anger, and second, a talk I call Reflections of Life. I normally put these two talks together here at the Kammasaka Monastery when we're doing retreats for lay people, because the first is a way to understand the arising of anger, and the second, and how to deal with it, and the second is how to overcome what quite often a lot of people receive later on, is the sense of guilt of having had that anger arise. So I like to put these two talks together for that particular reason. But let's talk a little bit about mindfulness to start with. Over the years now, there have been many medical investigations, a lot of medical evidence into the actual practice of mindfulness and its outcomes. And it's been proven, for example, the practice of Zen meditation, has become a mindful practice of life for reducing stress, anxiety, fear, and also anger. But we need to do this practice on a regular daily basis. It needs to be an ongoing practice. We need to develop it as a way of life. Regular practice. Sitting meditation, or mindfully sitting, mindfully walking. Here at the monastery, they have a little sign in front of each bathroom. When you wash your hands, just wash your hands. When you brush your teeth, just brush your teeth. This is not about water conservation. This is an opportunity to do a 2-minute practice of mindfulness. If you wash your hands 4 times a day, there's 4 little practices. If you brush your teeth 2 or 3 times a day, there's another small practice. So we can do our mindful practice without it taking up any more time in our day. Mindfulness can also be beneficial in dealing with strong negative emotions, such as envy, hate, and as also mentioned, anger. Let's talk about mindfulness of anger. When anger starts to arise within us, and we feel it coming, in the practice of Zen, in the practice of the Dharma, we look to not let this anger arise on its own. We need to have something else arise with it, another energy arise with it. Because if it arises on its own, it can cause a lot of pain, discomfort, hurt, and damage both to our physical self, our emotional self, and maybe even cause suffering to others around us. So as this sense or this experience of anger begins to arise within us, we start to practice what we call mindfulness of anger. As Master Han used to say, as I breathe in, I become aware of my anger. There's anger within me. As I breathe out, I smile at my anger and embrace my anger. Through our life experiences, positive, negative, over the entire period of our life, these experiences and the emotions attached to them have built up unknowingly within what we call our store consciousness. It's like this store box of emotions and feelings and memories. We don't even know or feel that they're there. They're like Master Han used to call them seeds, memory seeds. So we have seeds of anger which reside deep within us, and they just simply lie dormant until they are disturbed. When somebody says or does something or commits what they perceive grievance against us, then this seed of anger starts to activate. And it starts to manifest. And it starts to manifest into an energy. This energy that we can call anger. Our consciousness has four layers. Two of them are called our still consciousness and our mind consciousness. Yeah? And there are many different types of seeds that reside within the still consciousness. Seeds of greed, confusion, loneliness, discrimination, desire, envy, compassion. The list is endless. And these seeds reside deep within us. And when the seed of anger, for example, is left untouched, it just lays quietly dormant, and our life continues in its normal way. But it is still there. Same as all the other seeds, it's still there. So when the seed is touched by somebody saying or doing something, it starts to move out of this store box, out of this store consciousness, up into the realm of the mind consciousness. When it gets up into the mind consciousness, now we call this a mental formation. If this seed of anger becomes stronger and stronger, and the seed, for example, of compassion or care has less chance to form within us, less chance to manifest. So whenever a negative seed is activated and becomes a mental formation in the mind consciousness, we need to sort of take care of it. We're aware that it's arising, but now we need to take care of it. We need to realize this anger has been activated. This anger is arising. Realize that this anger has begun to manifest. So in the practice of Buddhism, we look to activate mindfulness of anger in our mind consciousness. Alongside this manifestation of the anger, so to try and create a zone of energy to help counteract the arising of this anger. To sort of encapsulate the anger. And once this mindfulness has arisen within us as well, and encapsulates the anger, now we have mindfulness of anger. Now the job of mindfulness of anger is simply has a function to recognize the anger. To recognize the anger has arisen, and to recognize the anger as anger. So, as Master Han used to say, as we breathe in, we know that this anger is within us. As we breathe out, we take care of the anger. We do not battle against the anger. We do not fight the anger. This doesn't work. This is not the way we do it in Buddhist practice. We do not try to battle our way and force our way out of the anger. So now, we have both within us, we have mindfulness in our mind consciousness, and we have anger in our mind consciousness. Whenever anger or despair arise, we generate the energy of mindfulness in order to recognize it, so that we know exactly what is going on. To help strengthen our mindfulness at this point in time, we could do some walking meditation, sitting meditation, even wash the dishes in mindful meditation, in a mindful act. It's all about comprehension. Mindfulness, and with that mindful energy we can recognize and comprehend anger is in us and have an understanding of it. Once we start to have understanding of it, this can start to bring us some sort of relief. With mindful walking, mindful breathing, or any mindful activity, we can start to find the base cause, the root of this anger. Where has it come from? What has caused this arising? We can start to recognize it. Once we can recognize it, and through the practice of mindfulness, we can start looking deeply into it. The beauty of mindfulness is that mindfulness is an energy that carries with it the energy of concentration. Wherever there is mindfulness, there is concentration. And the more we practice our mindfulness, the stronger this concentration grows. And with this concentration, we can practice looking deeply. And from that looking deeply comes insight. And it is this insight that can liberate and transform the anger. Over the years of our lives, and in many cases, anger has learnt to rise quite quickly within us. This can be due to our upbringing, our past experiences of life. It can also be an energy that has been transmitted to us from past learnt habits. And will continue, and they will continue, and we can continue to pass these on, of these experiences on, of anger to others, especially to our offspring. This is called, what we call samsaric continuation. We continue to pass on these experiences that we have learned to our offspring through the days of our lives. Samsara continuation. So, when we recognize this anger and we understand it's connected and has an association with past experiences, through mindfulness, through the practice of mindfulness, we can change our past associations. And then this anger and this resentment that might be building up within us, up into our stored consciousness, can begin to dissolve because now we have understanding. So the insight that we gain or receive from this, we call an insight of continuation, of this kind of habit energy that we have learned over the course of our lifetime. Then we can come to understand and we come to realize that we have become a sort of a victim of this, let's call it anger energy, a victim of past habit energy, which has been transmitted to us over the years of our lives. So, with this insight, we can look to stop the ongoing transmission of this anger habit energy. Yeah? It is insight that transforms our afflictions, and mindfulness has the power to recognise, embrace, and look deeply. So getting that insight can not only transform us, but can also free us. Transformation, healing, and freedom. These are to the liberation of the suffering of this anger. In the second part of this Dharma talk, I want to talk about what I call reflections of life. As the sunlight turns the moonlight of our life, life and all things change. Life begins with the sunlight of hope within us, okay? And without the understanding of the illusion of life. The illusion of life that surrounds us. And how it can end, unfortunately, sometimes in the darkness of despair. Our job is to turn that darkness of night and despair into the moonlight of the reflections of the wonders of life. It is these reflections of life that can fill our minds and our memories of past experiences, of love lost, love gained, past moments of happiness, and past moments of sadness. These reflections that can fill our mind's eyes, these are simply reflections of life. In days past, we have come across others in trouble, others in pain, others in a state of suffering. And now our response and reactions to these happenings and these occurrences and the memories of them can fill our reflective eyes. These are also reflections of our lives. And they seem to have the ability to simply and activate mind seeds within us. Seeds of sadness, seeds of suffering, compassion, and maybe even anger. Seeds that normally lie dormant in our store consciousness. They can rise up at the same time. When they rise up, they manifest as energy and become mental formations in our mind consciousness, as I mentioned in the previous video. The memories of these risings at the same time can cause confusion and stress. And now these reflections of life seem to fill the mind and can cause sorrow. So we look to take ourselves back to the comfort and warmth of that place based in the mindfulness of life. And understand that all the tears that we have shed, all the sensations of dying emotionally, when we take ourselves back to what we call our home self, then these are just pains, hurts, and sufferings. They are simply just reflections of our lives. And now, in the knowledge of the Dharma and the comfort of the Sangha, we can change. We can rearrange. In the knowledge that everything is impermanent, including our thoughts, our feelings, and our emotions, we now have the opportunity to live in a state of emotional contentment. As the sunlight of our lives turns to the moonlight of our years, in this moonlight, we can dispel the darkness and the delusion of this outer world. Yes, this world can be a bad place, and sometimes an unpleasant place to live in. But as our association with this temporary has grown, we have become attached to this impermanent bag of bones and flesh. We have mistaken this vessel body to be our true self. We have accepted this temporary physical condition to be final. This has come to us through our identification and our attachment with mind or material energy, physical body, sense pleasures, material possessions, ego, etc. Yes, this attachment to material energy can bring us temporary moments of pleasure. But these attachments can also rise and fill our memory eyes with sorrow. In these reflections of life, we tend to forget our home self. We get caught up in the past and believe that the past is the past and that is that. And it cannot be changed. But this is not accurate. If the reflections of your life, those painful moments of the past, turn into energy and arising as mental formations in your mind consciousness, and they are not only bits of life from the past lurking in your mind, they are now in the now. Also in your life, right in the now. And the wonderful thing about this, the wonderful thing about them being in the now, is that they can be dealt with. Dealt with by using reflective awareness, understanding, and mindful energy. Mindfulness can also be a dormant seed within us, within our still consciousness. And through mindful practice, we can learn to activate it so it can rise up as a mindful energy and encapsulate negative emotions from the past. With this mindful energy, we can recognize and embrace these emotions. So to comprehend them and to understand them, then this can begin to bring relief. As I mentioned in the earlier video, mindfulness is an energy that carries with it the energy of concentration. Wherever there is mindfulness, there is concentration. The more we practice mindfulness, the more powerful it becomes. The more powerful mindfulness is, the more stronger concentration becomes. Mindfulness and concentration give us the ability to practice looking deeply. And from looking deeply comes insight. It is this insight that can liberate and transform the darkness of negative reflections of the past, to the moonlight of the now. It is this insight that can liberate us and transform the darkness. With this insight, we have the knowing that in our younger years, we were inexperienced in life and we were unskillful in our life actions. And we can now realize that now is the time to change these memory reactions of the past that seem to just cascade through our minds, but realizing we are no longer the same person we once were, with enormous amounts of youthful exuberance and a serious lack of life skills. With insight, we come to realize these emotions are simply reflections of our lives. And that in the warm embrace of the Dharma, these dark feelings, as with ripples emanating on a pond, these too shall fade away and pass.